setting that landscape, that we have moved into a period in which I think there's a better appetite for social responsibility. Interestingly enough, I was approached yesterday by Imperial in London, Imperial University. Is it Imperial College, I suppose? Okay. They're doing a research piece on the impact of the impact that COVID has had on social responsibility. So I'm going to be sharing some information with them, and I think they're looking at not just social responsibility but sustainability as well, environmental stuff. So this really kind of goes back to the thing that I've always said, that, and I've challenged that. I actually get really annoyed when people talk about the new normal and this new landscape. I think it will be a new landscape, incidentally, but I think the new normal is misleading. And I've made that point that actually what we're doing is we're going back to that more authentic normal that we forgot about, that was already there, but we kind of got carried away with our lives. And I don't know, from your point of view, Isabel, from a third sector perspective, whether you've seen a shift in how people give from a consumer individual point of view, as well as a business. I suspect that the corporate engagement has started to get bigger and bigger, and actually the consumer engagement, the rattling the bucket on the high street, has not been as successful.
Yeah, we haven't been able to do that, so that's the reason I'm doing more things like this. I'm helping the corporate team because we are relying on our corporate patrons and getting new corporate patrons, and local businesses really supporting their local charities. I've been doing a lot of research on that, and trying to engage them, because it's kind of shifted in how we have to do our fundraising now.
Yeah, and I think we've looked at this sea change, in terms of not just the coronavirus sea change, but the sea change that we discussed last time, which was looking at how the sea is more inclusive and now looks at communities and citizens and charities and so on and so forth, and how it can help to bring those people together in a collaborative way, and in a community way, sort of thing, a collective way. So we have collective social responsibility. The other thing that I'm interested in doing, and again, I'm working with Bucks New University and Buckingham University with regards to doing some research on what social value looks like. And I would be interested to have a conversation with you as well, and other charities, because I'm interested in showing, what that return on social investment looks like. And I think if we are able to show what that social return on investment is, or that, so in other words, you have your return on investment. So this is SROI as opposed to ROI. But I think that if we can get some measurement around engagement and around reduced absenteeism and all that kind of stuff, recruitment, training, we can get some figures, then we can then show empirically that supporting charities will have a positive financial impact. But I want to be able to also show social impact, so that what the power of feeling good looks like, what the power of being enriched, being recognised. And I think there's some nice work that can be done on that. So we're in the process of doing that. The universities are going to do some research pieces on trying to kind of get, and what is the cost of leavism, what is the cost of poor recruitment, of poor reputation, all these sort of things, so we can start to build that together. But I think the thing is, what we have recognised is that employees have recognised that their workforce, there is a need for both care and purpose, and this is, and it's just a question of understanding the language that is articulated through. But I think it's more important than ever, and I think as we go back to what everyone else is calling the new normal, but I'm calling an authentic normal, then I think there's a bigger opportunity for the third sector to really take advantage of that. So I'm just going to talk a bit about what strategic social responsibility is. By taking a strategic approach, organisations can determine what activities they have the resources to devote to being socially responsible. They can choose CSR activities that will strengthen their competitive advantage. And by planning CSR as part of an organisation's overall plan, so in other words, building it into a strategy, you can ensure, you know, if you're in the private sector, that profits and increasing shareholder value don't overshadow the need to behave ethically to stakeholders. So I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but one of the United States' most powerful business groups has abandoned the shareholder first idea that has driven capitalism for decades. The Business Roundtable said the pursuit of shareholder interest is no longer the central purpose of corporate America. So they are saying, and we are beginning to get that in the UK economy, companies should focus on social responsibility as well as profits. So delivering value to our customers, investing in our employees, dealing fairly and ethically with our suppliers, supporting the communities in which we work, and generating long-term value for shareholders. So essentially, strategic social responsibility provides organisations with solutions for balancing the creation of economic value with the social value. So getting the balance between commercialism and social value, how to manage those stakeholder relationships. So in other words, you know, showing certainly investor relationships, the important value of working with social value, identifying and responding to threats and opportunities facing the stakeholders. So that's kind of, you know, looking at, you know, being able to look at up and coming trends and look at the situation we're in at the moment. So a big threat at the moment is the transition to home working and the lack of social responsibility that's being put into that by businesses. So they're expecting their employees by and large to go home and work, but they're not putting an infrastructure in to support them, certainly around their mental health and well-being, around isolationism, but also around things like IT support and skills training. There are some businesses that are doing this well, but you know, we know of a lot that aren't. And also developing a sustainable business practice. So deciding the organisation's capacity. And I think this is really important, especially for charities. I think that you've got to look at what capacity have you got to deliver social responsibility. Don't overreach because you won't hit your goals, and that will be a negative. So in other words, you know, look at what you can do, what you're already doing and how you can do that better. And look at what aligns with your business as well. So if you look at, you know, hospice care, what surrounds that and how can that be supported? So are there other organisations that are looking at, you know, supporting carers or supporting mental health and wellbeing strategies for businesses, for people going to work who have a relative or a loved one that is, you know, in the final stages of their life, sort of thing, and how, you know, how do they manage this? I remember, this is a personal story, but I do remember this. It was with a band I played in many years ago, and the bass player's wife had terminal cancer and was in the final stages of her life and was receiving home palliative care at home. And her husband never spoke about it, never discussed what he was struggling with, because obviously the moment he said something, and I witnessed this once when he said, it's quite hard, I'm struggling with this. And then his wife just said, yeah, I don't know what your problem is. You're not the one who's dying, I am, you know. And now, of course, that's, you know, that's fair enough, because that's what was happening to her, and that's obviously huge on her landscape. But the thing is, it kind of dismissed the fact that he was struggling as well, and he wasn't allowed a space to struggle in. So I think, you know, so supporting somebody like that at work through developing, you know, and again, that might be a really nice strategy to approach businesses with and say, well, look, you know, maybe there is an opportunity to engage with members of staff who are struggling with the fact that there's somebody who's close to them who is going through, you know, who is requiring hospice care. So I'm just making that kind of relevant, really, but it's a good example because it's relevant. In other words, it's finding things that are in line with your business. Importantly, it's also identifying the stakeholders in the business that can create that internal engagement. So often it could be an individual or a small group, a steering group can be established to ensure a consistent approach of delivering CSR. It helps you then sit down maybe once a month or once every couple of weeks and start to look at what what capacity you have, what goals you're setting, and making sure that you're communicating the impacts. It's really important that you look at that internal engagement as well as the external engagement, so that if you're doing this, it's perhaps nice that if there is an individual doing it, that they are pulling in relevant members of their organisation to contribute. So like HR or finance or facilities managers or whoever it might be, because those other people can help put together areas in which they can deliver on those 4 pillars of environment, workplace, community and philanthropy. And also, as I've mentioned, it's about building there are many CSR activities organisations can choose to engage with, but without focus and alignment around what your organisation does well. So, look at what your organisation is doing well and try and align those social responsibility programmes around that. If a company has developed strengths, research and knowledge in a specific area, supporting a cause that aligns with that expertise can be both a win for the community partners and the company with new customer visibility and revenue streams. So you should look for that sweet spot within the organisations that there's an intersection between business and social environment returns. So the CSR 4 pillars, as we've mentioned, will help you do that. And it's also recognising issues that matter to your customers. So according to a recent US study, 87% of customers would purchase a product based on a company supporting a social or environmental issue that the consumer cares about. So in other words, consumers are rewarding socially responsible companies through brand loyalty, making donations to charities companies support and purchasing projects that provide social benefit. Consumers aren't afraid to use their buying power to punish organisations who have acted irresponsibly or harmfully through boycotts and negative social media campaigns. So actually, by engaging with a business as a charity, you are helping them to develop that brand loyalty for their organisation. And as a charity, also, by engaging with social responsibility, you're building that brand loyalty and advocacy for you as an organisation as well. So here's something that's amazing. This is this is cracking new data. This is because we only got this information last week. So strategically aware organisations are also using CSR programs to protect and grow their biggest asset, their employees. 76% of millennials consider an organisation's social and environmental commitments when deciding where to work. And 64% will not take a job if a potential employer does not have a strong social policy in place. So being a good employer has always served well in terms of recruitment and retention. In addition, engaged employees are more likely to stay with an organisation with reduced attrition costs. Now, this chart is a Gallup poll that came out this year. It said that the UK workforce, only 11% are engaged in their job. 68% are not engaged and 21% are actively disengaged. So disengaged employees tend to be more prevalent in the public sector, and these people are actively destructive in terms of their job. The non-engaged are people who just go to work and do their job and go home. The engaged are people who are really driven by what they do, really passionate about what they do and really involved. Now, Gallup then suggested that there are 3 things that creates engaged, motivated staff. They are purpose, education, and autonomy. So if you think about that 11% are engaged, that means, we can legitimately go to businesses and say, we know how to create engagement within your workforce that will improve that productivity, improve that absenteeism and all of that stuff. And we can deliver it by empowering you as a business to offer your staff purpose and value as part of their job description. And I think this is a really, really powerful message, because these figures are startling. We know that an engaged workforce increases productivity significantly. So, the cost, what we're getting to is almost self-financing. So your CSR policy, and in fact, your CSR accreditation ultimately becomes self-financed, because we can show how much you can save by delivering social responsibility as part of a strategy. So these initiatives can range from obviously paid off time for volunteering to company-wide CSR initiatives that encourage team building through a community or charitable involvement. So I think that's for us, that's a really good new slide. And this comes back to that return on investment. So, you know, we want to be able to measure the return on investment of CSR efforts for all stakeholders. Measuring CSR programs can be overwhelming, especially when initiatives can span many different departments, such as human resources, marketing, sustainability, and compliance. By fully understanding the benefits of CSR, you will see how this has a positive impact on performance. So seek to quantify socially conscious efforts that are directly tied to the company's bottom line. So for example, under environment, it's quite easy because you can measure energy saving costs. If you change to LED, that there's a figure, we know what that figure is. If you really manage your waste management as a business, you have to pay to have your waste put into landfill. So if you manage that stream, then you reduce your landfill tax, and you also encourage a culture of recycling. And reduce travel costs, work from home schemes, teleconferencing, and reduced utilities. So that's obvious. But of course, in the workplace, as we've touched on earlier, we've got, you know, improved performance, reduced recruitment costs, reduced training costs, staff retention, improvement through mental health and well-being, so on and so forth. And obviously with community and philanthropy, we've got that improved brand visibility and reputation, reduced PR and marketing costs because you're creating those stories directly, and also the ability to put in your key performance indicators so you can start to log all of this. And we'll come back to that in a little bit because those key performance indicators are really important. You know, there's no point delivering social responsibility unless you can audit, unless you can benchmark it and measure it, because it's that creates the data that really then shows everybody that it's a really proper and valuable investment. Also, the idea of expand your organisation's definition of CSR. Traditionally, efforts aimed at reducing environmental resources, annual giving initiatives and cause marketing campaigns have largely defined good corporate citizenship. While these efforts are of course valuable, consumers and organisations have grown and become more innovative in how they define a responsible performer. So consumers prioritise the following business actions as important. Obviously being a good employer. And just going back to that Gallup chart, 11% engaged, 68% non-engaged, 21% actively disengaged. The 3 reasons for motivation, which again is purpose, education and autonomy. The 2 biggest reasons, and just on that motivational thing, it wasn't money. So people weren't enticed by money to motivate them to stay in their work. And this has a real resonance with the reason people leave jobs. The reason people leave is because of bad leadership and bad corporate culture. So if your leader is ignoring you, is not putting the effort, is not providing you the tools to do your job properly, you become disenchanted and you move on. And if the business culture is aggressive and negative and people don't look after each other within the workplace, it's the same thing. So, you know, you've got this very interesting thing that the biggest reason to motivate staff is not financial, it's about emotional investment. And the biggest reason for people to leave isn't financial, it's about emotional. It's an emotional thing. And it's something that we haven't paid attention to really. We've talked about it for years, but no one's ever really paid any attention to it. And there's still an attitude in the boardroom that you come and work for my business to make me lots of money, and if you're not happy with that, then off you go. You know, and that obviously is why we have 68% of the workforce who aren't engaged with their jobs. So being a good employer, operating in a way that protects and benefits society and the environment, creating products and services that ensure individual well-being, investing in causes in local communities and around the globe, and standing up for important justice issues. So as a business, having an opinion. So you can expand your definition. If your business says, right, we want to do something around Black Lives Matter, or we want to do something around bullying in the workplace, we'll do a white paper on that. Or we want to do something, you know, then actually you can define your CSR to include areas above and beyond what the obvious is. So creating a structure, as discussed, the 4 pillars provide the framework to audit what you were doing and what you could be doing. Using the CSR 4 pillars matrix, you can identify CSR activity that can be measured, involve staff, improve reputation, resonate with your organization's core purpose. And by cross-checking against the clear business benefits and impacts, you'll be able to start benchmarking the results. So what we essentially have is we have those 4 pillars: environment, workplace, philanthropy and community. So there's your first matrix, and into those 4 pillars you can put in what you're doing. Now let's say into the environmental pillar you've identified 3 things that you're already doing as a business. Let's say it's energy saving through LED lights, it's recycling, and you've got a cycle to work scheme. Now if we take the first one, you can apply these next 4 questions, these next 8 questions, sorry, 5 questions, to that first one. And you can do this for all things that you put into that list. So for example, energy saving, what internal impact has there been? So you can then say, what has the impact been about changing all our lights to LED? Well, you can say that actually you've shown environmental leadership, that you've done something to reduce your impact on the planet. You reduced your carbon footprint. What has the external impact been? Again, the external impact has been showing responsibility to your customers and to your external audiences, and also by reducing the national electricity bill, reducing the country's impact on carbon. The financial benefit, you can then say, well, actually, regular light bulbs were costing us this much. LED has meant that we're doing this. We're a factory, we've put them in place. And I can tell you that shopping malls who have done this have saved between 8 and 60,000 pounds in 1 year just by reducing their LED lights, because all their Christmas lights are LED. So between 8 and 60,000 pounds depending on the size of the shopping mall. So that's a huge. And what PR impact is there? Well, the PR impact is the storytelling. I've just told you that story. So what a great story to tell, because that shopping mall, one of the shopping malls that we worked with, they poured the money they'd saved from their electricity into reducing the rentable value for their tenants. So they created no end of stories. And what are the key performance indicators? Well, the key performance indicator in this case is looking at the electricity bill before you put LED lights in and looking at it afterwards. So if you take this benchmarking and recording process, if we move to the next pillar, let's say workplace, and we looked at, say, mental health and well-being, what's the internal impacts? Well, you can say, well, through a staff survey, we have improved the mental health and well-being in our office, and therefore that's created more productivity. And the external impact is that we've got people going home happier, we've got people engaged, and we're setting an example. The financial impacts is that actually less people are leaving, less people are ill, less people are coming to work ill and struggling through the day. And the PR impacts, again, are brilliant storytelling. The key performance indicators are through your internal staff satisfaction surveys and improved productivity for the business. So you can see that by taking, each of these 5 questions and applying each of those 5 questions to what you put into your list. So I can't remember why I shared this last time, but we've got a toolkit which we can share that has all the matrices in that you can then use and it's funny because you'll do this. You'll just get a piece of paper, write down your matrix, stick in, some activity that you're doing, and then suddenly when you start asking those questions, you'll find answers to them, and then you've got impact reporting, and you can start to use that data to benchmark and to measure from. And so key performance indicators are critical to this. They are a progress towards an intended result. So KPIs provide a focus on strategic and operational improvement and create an analytical basis for decision making and focus attention on what matters. So by showing your KPIs, you're showing impact evidence that can influence decision making in the future, and also provide the evidence to make sure that your shareholders and your stakeholders are satisfied that this is not distracting from the business and damaging the business, but creating a positive outcome. So provide objectives, evidence of progress towards achieving a desired result. Measure what is intended to be measured to help inform better decision making. So it gives you a focus on what you should be measuring. Offer a comparison that gauges the degree of performance change over time. So the thing about the CSR accreditation is that actually starts the first recording of your activity that you can then measure against in the future. And can track efficiency, effectiveness, quality, timeliness, governance, compliance, economics, project performance, personal performance, and resource utilization. and also a balance between leading and lagging indicators. So don't be unhappy if you've got lagging indicators, because it shows that that's where you need to be doing better. And where the leading indicators are, what are you doing well? That's creating those leading indicators. And of course, policy impact auditing. For every CSR activity, as we have identified, there will be ways to monitor and record performance. You may have to be creative, because CSR, as we've explored in the past, is a big thing, and it can mean many things. It can mean different things. Different organisations will have their nuances. So a beekeeper will have a certain level of CSR that's applicable to their business, to a hairdresser, to an international corporate, to a sole trader. But the thing is that, you know, there are ways you will find ways to measure against and evaluate and benchmark against those individual activities. Monitoring and measurement will vary from activity to activity. Measuring energy performance obviously is quite straightforward, as you can record electricity before and after use. However, you may need such tools as satisfaction surveys to measure staff performance and retention, look at recruitment trends and reduce cost in training. It will also be possible to use software tools to measure increased brand visibility on social media platforms. So again, from a charitable point of view, there are very easy free software that you can get online that actually shows every time you're mentioned in the social media sphere. So you can do something, post it on LinkedIn or whatever, it could get shared, it could get picked up, and then the software is geared to saying every time Lenny Grove comes up on a feed through someone else's social media channel, you get to know about it, and then you can go, wow, you know, we had a real spike in visibility through that activity. And that is a direct KPI measurement of activity that you're doing. So in conclusion, CSR programs have the potential to help your organisation and society progress, not only, but only if done well. By aligning corporate citizenship efforts with revenue generating activities, you ensure CSR program is strategic and sustainable. In our experience, many organisations are already doing a lot of great things. They often do not realise that they all contribute to the success, both financially and reputationally, of their business. Getting the small things right can really instill pride and a strong culture within an organisation. And as we've covered before, we've highlighted the benefits to an organisation of a more socially responsible approach. And everything that we've discussed today does count towards an organisation's CSR commitment. So each pillar is designed to help you audit, benchmark, improve, and report on what you're doing. So, you know, we would encourage you to use this time, you know, the time you've got now to show that commitment to others. And within the charitable structure, Lenny Grove is well established, is a big organisation. I think this would, you know, implementing a strategy that shows your CSR commitment to those four pillars. So how you look after your staff, how you're looking after the environment, how you look after the community, that is aligned with what your core purpose is, I think would be a valuable exercise. And you can start to communicate that on your website and through your social media channels. And I've got no doubt that within several months of getting the planning right and making sure that you're putting the time, you know, to deliver this, and more importantly, communicate it, you will see that return in terms of improved engagement for the charity by businesses. And also showing how you can help businesses deliver the things we've talked about as well.